Hello ladies and gentlemen, this is Blue Maxima. Welcome back to Blue Boards. This time we're going to be talking about the third edition of Innovation by Carl. I don't know how to pronounce his last name. Either it sounds like he's chewing on something rather inappropriate to chew on, or he's a chud. So I've got no idea. But anyway, this is a game about building a tableau of innovations. These innovations are represented by 10 different ages of cards, going all the way up from prehistoric to the information age, and they get more and more powerful as they go along. And the idea is you'll be using these to score points, you'll be using them to gain achievements, and if someone manages to get to a certain amount of achievements first, they win. But if deck 10 empties out and another card needs to be drawn, you go to scoring, and someone with the highest score will win. So there's already two different victory conditions, and I always like that in games like this because it gives you a bit to think about as you're going on. But that's not even where the cool part is. The cool part is how the game works, how you play the game. Now, there are some actions you can take. You have 2 actions per turn under normal circumstances. You've got the ability to draw cards. You draw a card equal to the number that you can see up here, the highest number that's currently on your board. That's really simple, that's just easy how it works. However, when you draw cards in this game, if a deck is empty, you may draw from the next deck available, which creates some really interesting strategies later on that I'll get to. You also have the ability to meld, and when you meld a card, you simply put it in play. If I didn't have a yellow on my board, this would become my new yellow stack. However, because there is a yellow on my board, it covers it up. Nice and easy, right? You also have the ability to achieve. Now, throughout the game, you'll be scoring points, and you score points simply via taking cards from the decks that it tells you to take cards from, and placing them face down, so that you have a score pile. And if you've got enough points, you may take cards from the achievements in the center. Now, you may notice on these cards here that they have numbers of points, like for example, Enlightenment here has 30 points, which is a requirement in order to take its achievement, but the easier way to remember it is 1 starts at 5 and then goes up in 5-point increments. So 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 35, all the way up to 45, right? If I had 5 points and an Age 1 card, and you start with an Age 1 card on your board, you'd be able to take Age 1's achievement. If you want to take the second achievement, you need Age 2 or higher, Age 3, Age 4, Age 5, etc. With all of that said, the Dogma actions are where they really get interesting. So, the Dogma actions are what are on the card here, and you can see that they have a symbol here. This determines the symbol that you need to use while doing the Dogma action. In this case, is coins. So, counting this card here, we have 9 coins on our board. So, we would do this action. Draw and meld a 3. If it has a coin, draw and score a 4. So you'll notice that we don't have any 3s, so we actually get to draw and score, draw a 4 and meld it. It has coins, so we get to draw and score a 4. So now I have 4 points. However, if this wasn't a coin, if this didn't have a coin on top of it, we would have to give away points if we had more points than an opponent. However, where this game gets really interesting is sharing, because if the opponent has the same amount or more coins than you, they are forced to do this action before you do it. So imagine this, the opponent has got more points than you, and you know that coins are mostly missing from pile 3. You force them to do this before you do it. They draw and meld a 3, it has no coins, they transfer a card from their score pile to your score pile, and then you do it, you get lucky and you get to draw and score a 4. Not to mention, because the state of the board changed, there's a special rule that says if an opponent takes part in this effect, you get to draw a card as well. So, you get to use this effect for a positive, your opponent gets punished by it, and then you get to draw an extra card, and that's 1 action on your turn. And this is just the start of some of the potential things that you can do with these cards. Some of these cards have I demand effects, where players that have less than the symbol will be forced to perform this action. So you'll just say to the opponent, I demand you transfer a top non-green card with a leaf from your board to my board, and then you transfer a top card without a leaf from my board to your board, so you're just swapping some cards around. There are 105 unique innovations in this game, and when I say unique, I mean unique. They all have completely different effects. They will score you cards. They will splay cards, which will let you display icons depending on what direction you splay. So these green ones here, this is a right splay. This shows 1 extra icon. The blues are a left splay, this shows 2. The purples are an up splay, this shows 3. So splaying will give you more icons. And the further you get on in the ages themselves, the more powerful the effects get. You can even see this on the back of this here. So you can see here in the ages 1 to 3 have castles. Castles are actually very powerful early on, but then you can get into age 4, for example, and you'll have something like gunpowder. I demand you transfer a top card with a castle from your board to my score pile, and then you get to draw and score cards if anything was transferred. A player with a lot of castles can go from being really powerful to really weak in a single card. And there are so many strategies and so many counter strategies and so many combos. And again, you think about it in that sense, like, are the opponents going to be able to use these? Do I want them to use these? I might be giving them an advantage because there might be a really simple card, like for example, here, the wheel. Draw 2 ones, but if the opponents have castles, that might end up being a problem. But imagine if you had this, but everyone else is already in age 7 or 8, so they're displaying nothing but clocks. They've got no castles on the board whatsoever, and decks 2, 4, 5, and 6 are completely empty. So imagine if you've got the wheel, and you use the wheel. You're the only one who gets to use it, you get to draw 2 7s. Even the cards that are useful early on might actually have more uses because the decks are empty or missing. Or you might be able to get a draw out of them that you might not otherwise get. There are so many things to think about when it comes to playing a game of innovation, and it works so well. And all of these cards are unique. All of their icons are unique. All of the things that they can do are unique. And it creates just this absolutely fantastic decision space where you have to worry about the effects that you have, the effects opponents have, how many icons you have, and whether or not that might leave you open to a I demand effect that can cripple you. Whether you'll be able to start scoring points to be going for achievements, whether you need to be scoring points in order to top out the deck and try and win on points, whether you might be going for one of the special achievements up there that have all sorts of end game style effects, like scoring 6 cards during your turn, claim this special achievement if you have 12 clocks on your board, if you have 3 icons of any type on your board. The Universe achievement, which is if every card that you have on top of all of your stacks is 8 or higher, or the Wonder achievement, which is everything that you have is splayed up and right, and you've got 5 different color piles on your board. But those can also be earned via cards that are in the earlier ages, so they might be gone before you can even consider going for them. And even then, the game pulls a little bit of a sneaky. It has end game effects in the higher decks. So here's one from age 9. If you have 10 or more green cards on your board, you win. So if you've just been building up a ton of green cards and that's all you've had available to you, pulling that off might actually win you the game. And it gets even worse when you get to age 10, like for example, self-service. If you have more achievements than each opponent, you win. Cool. AI. Draw and score a 10. If robotics and software are top cards on any board, the single player with the lowest score wins. And this can get ridiculous. This can be absolutely ridiculous. Draw and score a 6. If no player has more leaves than factories on their board, the single player with the highest score wins. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous just how bad it can get. Like, age 9. My favorite card in the game is in age 9, but I haven't gotten the opportunity to play it yet. Fission. I demand you draw a 10. If it is red, remove all hands, boards, and score piles from the game. If this occurs, the Dogma action is complete. And then, Fission. Return a top card other than Fission from any player's board and draw a 10. So it's incredibly risky to use, but it lets you get rid of anything. And of course, just to give you an idea of how much of a luck-based mission it is, every age has 2 cards of each color. Of course, you take 1 from each deck to make the achievement pile at the beginning, so it always muddies up the waters a bit. But it just gets ridiculous later on. But even then, the earlier game effects can have later game effects that are even better. So, admittedly, the game kind of comes down to find the most overpowered combo and exploit it as much as possible. But frankly, it's awesome because the amount of decisions you have to make, the space you have to work in, the amount of different effects that could be available to you at any one time. And that is what makes innovation great. However, there are a couple of things that are wrong with it. Honestly, the rulebook kind of sucks. It gives you too much information right off the bat, doesn't present it in a way that's easy to remember, and frankly, you're better off trying to learn the majority of the game off the player aids, just because everything on here is as simple as it is, and then refer back to the rulebook for rules questions, just because it doesn't try to flood you with too much information right off the bat. That can make the game kind of hard to learn. They also include 2 cards here, which are just kind of pointless. You only get 2 actions per turn. It's not that hard to track them, especially when you've got the other players keeping an eye on you. It's also worth noting that you can play innovation with 2 to 4 players. However, when you're playing with 4 players, you only need to earn 4 achievements to win. If you're playing with 2 players or 3 players, it's 6 and 5 achievements respectively. And the game can accelerate so much faster because you have so many players activating Dogma effects, so many players drawing free cards because other players have shared in their effects, I should say. So the game is just that much faster. And as a result, until you really learn the game in every single one of the decks, the game can kind of feel a bit swingy. Because someone can just draw 1 card and just wipe the floor with the effect. Someone might start with a card that can wipe the floor. Like, for example, here, there's one particular card that became infamous in our playgroup because of how weird it was at 4 players. I demand you transfer a card with a coin from your hand to my score pile. If you do, draw 1 and repeat this Dogma effect. So he got incredibly lucky, drawing so many cards off that he was at 20 points by like his 4th turn. It was ridiculous, and we didn't really have a way to fight back from that. We were drawing through the decks trying to find one, but we just weren't getting lucky enough to get there, and he was able to score all the achievements before we could even think about it. With that said, though, that is just kind of a thing with the game itself. That's just kind of how the game's built. Once you know how it is, you'll be better at it. Of course, that's how it works. But yeah, when you're playing just the first few times, it can feel a bit swingy, it can feel a bit unfair, it can feel like someone can just draw a card and then just absolutely ruin your plans. And of course this is kind of intended, like gunpowder, making castles more of a detriment than a benefit. But that can just, be a thing that you have to get used to in your first couple of games. Outside of that, the game being hard to learn and a bit swingy, it's fantastic. It gives you so much to think about. The icons, splaying, the cards, and how you can earn extra draws, and how you can try and get to the end game by either taking as many achievements as you can, or getting as many points as you can and trying to rush to age 10 before someone can get the achievements that they need. Just the way that you can get extra end conditions out of ages 9 and 10 that people might not even expect. The fact that every single one of these effects is unique, and the fact that you can build so many cool combos off it, that the game feels different every single time. And even then, you've got 20 cards in the Age 1 deck, and you draw 2 out to each player, so you end up having a different start every single time as well, which can help a lot. And so as a result, the game itself just has so much bang for so little size and buck. Because this only costs like $30 Australian, so $20 American. It's super cheap, super small, super easy to carry around, but it has an absolute ton of weight in this box, and I love it. It is genuinely a fantastic game, and I will recommend it to no end. And normally I would talk about the expansions, if I owned them. However, I will be hopefully getting the reprint of the Innovation Big Box that they're putting out maybe at the end of the year. They've got a few projects they need to get through before they actually reprint that box. However, they add so many more effects and so many more ways to play that if you like innovation, just based on me looking at the cards, their effects, and the rulebook alone, yeah, the expansions are worth buying if you have the base game, because good lord, they add a lot to the game, and it's already got so much to it. Although, yeah, feel free to actually buy the game and play it first with it before you buy the expansions. I'll say that much right off the bat. With that said, this has been Blue Maxima. I'll see you all next time.